In a bustling school cafeteria, Miss Chen, the talented cook, noticed something peculiar. The numbers on her recipe cards kept jumping around and rearranging themselves. She couldn't tell if she needed 3 cups of flour or 30, making it impossible to prepare lunch for the hungry students. Mr. Rivera, the school's architect, was having a similar problem. The measurements for his new playground design were all mixed up. He scratched his head as he watched the numbers spin like tiny dancers on his blueprints. Miss Chen and Mr. Rivera met in the hallway, both looking distressed. They discovered they shared the same problem with their rebellious numbers. "We need to catch these mischievous numbers before lunchtime," declared Miss Chen. They decided to work together and created a clever plan. Mr. Rivera would design special number traps, while Miss Chen would bake number-shaped cookies as bait. They set up their traps in the empty cafeteria. The architect watched in amazement as the first numbers began approaching the cookies. A group of sevens twirled around the sweet treats, while some fours hopped closer and closer. The trap was working. Miss Chen gently spoke to the captured numbers, asking why they were causing such chaos. The numbers formed themselves into words, explaining they were bored of always staying still and wanted to dance and play. Mr. Rivera had a brilliant idea. He quickly sketched a special playground just for numbers, where they could move and play during break times. The numbers bounced with excitement at his design. Miss Chen suggested creating a numbered dance party during lunch breaks. She would make special treats arranged in mathematical patterns, and the numbers could dance while helping students learn math in a fun way. The numbers were overjoyed with these ideas. They settled back into their proper places on the recipes and blueprints, but now they sparkled with happiness. The architect and cook had solved the problem by understanding what the numbers needed. Mr. Rivera's playground became a magical place where numbers would come alive during math class, helping students understand mathematics through play and movement. The children were amazed to see equations dancing before their eyes. In the cafeteria, Miss Chen's number-themed lunches became famous throughout the school. Students eagerly counted their vegetables arranged in multiplication tables and solved fraction problems with sliced pizzas. Together, the architect and cook had transformed the school into a place where numbers weren't just symbols on a page, but friendly helpers that made learning fun. And sometimes, if you listened carefully during lunch break, you could still hear the happy numbers humming their counting songs. A month after the dancing numbers incident, Miss Chen noticed new peculiar behavior in her kitchen. The measuring cups were spinning by themselves, and ingredients were floating through the air. The numbers must have taught our kitchen tools some tricks, she thought. Mr. Rivera was called to investigate when geometric shapes began appearing on the school walls. Triangles, squares, and circles were rolling and bouncing down the hallways, playing tag with each other. The dancing numbers appeared again, but this time they were teaching the shapes how to create beautiful patterns. Together, they formed amazing mathematical art on the cafeteria walls. Miss Chen had an idea to use this new development. She began creating geometric-shaped sandwiches and number-inspired pastries, making mathematics even more delicious for the students. Mr. Rivera started designing special areas in the school where shapes could play freely. He created slides for triangles and roundabouts for circles, all while teaching students about geometry. The shapes and numbers joined forces to help students understand math concepts. Triangles demonstrated angles, while circles taught about pi, all dancing and twirling as they explained. Miss Chen discovered that the shapes loved helping her organize the kitchen. Squares arranged the storage containers perfectly, while triangles helped portion pizza slices equally. Mr. Rivera began incorporating the playful shapes into his new school design projects. The shapes would suggest creative ideas, making each space both functional and fun. During lunch breaks, the numbers and shapes would put on spectacular shows in the cafeteria. They created incredible moving sculptures that taught students about both math and art. Miss Chen organized a special Math and Munchies Day, where students learned fractions by cutting shapes out of sandwiches and cookies. The shapes themselves helped guide the students' hands. Mr. Rivera's geometry classes became the most popular in school. The living shapes would transform his drawings into real 3D forms, making complex concepts easy to understand. The school had become an even more magical place where numbers and shapes worked together to make learning an adventure. Students couldn't wait to see what mathematical marvels would appear each day. As the school year drew to a close, Miss Chen and Mr. Rivera noticed the numbers and shapes becoming quieter. The magical friends seemed to be preparing for something special, a grand mathematical finale to thank everyone. Miss Chen began preparing for the end-of-year celebration feast. To her delight, all the numbers lined up perfectly on her recipes, and the measuring tools danced one last cheerful ballet in her kitchen. Mr. Rivera found his blueprints glowing with geometric patterns. The shapes were leaving behind permanent, beautiful designs that would decorate the school walls forever, like a lasting mathematical signature. The numbers and shapes gathered in the cafeteria for their final performance. They created spectacular light shows, forming constellations of mathematical concepts that sparkled and danced through the air. Miss Chen prepared special farewell treats with the help of her magical friends. Together, they created a feast where every dish told a story about their mathematical adventures throughout the year. Mr. Rivera unveiled his masterpiece, a permanent playground where regular equipment seemed to echo the playful shapes they'd come to know. Slides curved like number twos, and climbing frames formed perfect geometric patterns. Students gathered to celebrate, sharing stories about how the magical numbers and shapes had helped them learn. The cafeteria buzzed with joy as everyone enjoyed Miss Chen's mathematical feast. The numbers and shapes began to glow softly, transforming into twinkling lights. They danced one last time, spelling out "thank you" in the air before gently fading into the school's walls. Miss Chen discovered that while the numbers no longer danced, they had left behind their magic in her recipes. Every dish she cooked would now have a special way of making mathematics delicious. Mr. Rivera found that his designs now naturally incorporated the playful spirit of their geometric friends. His blueprints seemed to capture the joy of learning in every line and angle. The school had been transformed forever. Though the numbers and shapes no longer danced visibly, their magic remained in every corner, inspiring new generations of students to see the wonder in mathematics. As Miss Chen and Mr. Rivera looked back on their magical year, they smiled knowing that they had helped create something special, a place where mathematics would always be an adventure, and learning would forever be filled with joy and wonder. Minitale.